It's rivalry week, which means we throw records out the window.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. It is rivalry week, the last week of the regular season in college football, and by far one of the biggest. And we've been saying it all year, all the way back when we were doing our predictions in the summer. When you face off against a rival, you throw records out the window. History does not matter. Your current record does not matter. Teams wake up to play their rivals. And right here on this board, we have the 5 biggest games coming in to rivalry week, some of which hold major conference title implications and some of which hold major college football playoff implications. So we are here to break down these 5 games among all the other big ones that will be taking place starting on Thanksgiving night and going all the way through Saturday night. So let's get started. We're going to jump right into it. We have a lot to cover for one of the biggest weeks in all of college football. We've got number 23 Virginia Tech traveling to take on Virginia. And remember that these rankings are based on the current AP poll. They're not our rankings. They are not the playoff committee's rankings. We do these, we base them off the AP poll so we can continue to bring you our predictions every Tuesday. So these are the AP rankings as of right now. Virginia Tech and Virginia. A huge rivalry game that when you look at the history really hasn't been a rivalry in over the past decade. The Hokies have won 15 straight over Virginia. 15 straight over the Cavaliers. And when you look at it, it hasn't been that competitive either, as Virginia Tech has won just 5 of those by 1 possession. The rest being by at least 10 points or more. Or I should say even 9 points or more. So Virginia Tech dominating these series for well over the past decade. Keep in mind, the last time Virginia beat the Hokies, some of their current players were just 2 years old. You have to let that sink in for a little bit. It's unbelievable how long it has been. Now last year, Virginia Tech beat Virginia 34-31 in overtime. 34-31 overtime. So the Cavaliers were so close to ending that losing streak. But unfortunately, they pushed it to 15. And this game has even higher stakes than it did last year because not only can Virginia end that losing streak to the Hokies, they can win the ACC Coastal Division. This game will determine who will face off against Clemson in the ACC title game. Now for Virginia Tech, they're on a roll, guys. We know that. They've won 6 of their past 7. They're sitting at 8-3. They have back-to-back shutouts for the first time since 2005. Bud Foster, in his final year with the Hokies, has his defense playing at a very elite level at the perfect time, right here towards the end of the season. Virginia Tech has also found themselves an offense with Hendon Hooker coming in at quarterback, has not lost as the starting quarterback for the Hokies, has 10 touchdowns and 0 interceptions this season. So Virginia Tech hitting their stride on all aspects of the ball, all aspects on the field. Have a very balanced offense, about 209 passing yards per game and about 172 rushing yards per game, led by Deshaun McClease. So this Virginia Tech team is rolling. But can they continue that winning streak over Virginia? We are saying no. Back in the preseason, we picked the Cavaliers, and we're going to stick with them in this one. The Cavaliers, while they have battled some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, while they have not maybe lived up to the lofty expectations, they too are sitting at 8-3. They were a heavy favorite to win the Coastal this year, and I think they do just that. Defense in this game will determine this one, no doubt in my mind. But I like Bryce Perkins and the experience at quarterback a little more than I like Hendon Hooker right now. I like Virginia to shut down this Virginia Tech rushing offense, which will force Hendon Hooker to win this game through the air. Virginia gets a late stop, much like the Virginia Tech defense did last year in overtime, and Virginia wins this game at home to snap the 15-game losing streak to the rival in the Hokies. And what better way to do it than by winning the ACC Coastal? Moving on Friday. This one also taking place on Friday. We have number 18 Cincinnati traveling to take on number 17 Memphis. And once again, we don't always put a group of 5 games up here on the big board. But this one is a major exception and a major game for both of these teams. They're both sitting at 10-1 right now. Cincinnati has already clinched themselves a spot and the American Athletic title game, conference title game. So they're locked in. But they're not locked in to a New Year's Six bowl game. And to keep that hope alive, they need to win this game over Memphis. The same can be said for the Tigers, who are also sitting at 10-1, have yet to clinch a spot in the American Athletic title game yet. If they win this game, they do, and they keep their New Year's Six bowl game hopes alive. So there's a very good chance you could see these two squads play on Friday and then see them play again next week in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. But the loser of this game, regardless of what happens in the title game, will probably be out of a New Year's Six bowl game. So major stakes on the line in Memphis on Saturday afternoon. For Cincinnati, all the credit in the world to what Luke Fickell has built in the past 2 seasons with the Bearcats. He is in perfect line and in perfect shape to probably be leaving for another Power 5 job coming at the end of this season. I would be surprised if he stuck with Cincinnati at the conclusion of this year. But while Cincinnati is sitting at 10-1, they have some very unimpressive wins in my opinion. Some of their games have been too close for comfort for the number 18 team in the country. They beat Temple by 2. And yes, Temple was the team that beat Memphis. Memphis' only loss this season where the Tigers fell to the Owls by just 2 points. But they beat South Florida just by 3, 20-17. Memphis beat them last week by 39. And then they beat East Carolina 46-43, which, once again, East Carolina, a team with a losing record, building something there, but just not to that point yet. So a lot of games that have been too close for comfort against inferior opponents for the Bearcats. They are averaging nearly 30 points per game, though, and allowing about 20 points per game. That's going to be their problem here. While they have a balanced offense with Desmond Ridder at quarterback and Michael Warren at running back, their problem and their downfall is going to be their defense, which was supposed to be fairly strong coming into 2019. But they're allowing 230 passing yards per game, and they're going up against a Memphis team that's averaging 292 passing yards per game, led by Brady White, one of the best quarterbacks in all of the American Athletic Conference, over 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions. They're averaging 42.2 points per game, and keep in mind that if somehow Cincinnati stuffed the pass, if they shut it down, Memphis still has a guy named Kenneth Gainwell who's rushed for over 1,200 yards this season. So Memphis, like Cincinnati, has a balanced offense, but in a game like this, the passing game is going to be key. Memphis owns the edge there, and they own home field advantage. I like Memphis to win this game, keep their New Year's Six bowl hopes alive, win the American Athletic Western Division, and set up a rematch against Cincinnati in next week's conference title game. Down here, at number 3, number 2 Ohio State, number 10 Michigan. This is not just any game. This is the game. The game between the Buckeyes and the Wolverines, arguably one of the greatest rivalries in all of college football. But like Virginia Tech and Virginia, if you look at history, it hasn't been much of a rivalry in recent years. Michigan has lost 14 of the past 15 to the Buckeyes, including losing 7 straight. Their last win against Ohio State came back in 2011, and that Buckeyes team was led by none other than Luke Fickell, the head coach now at Cincinnati. Out of these past 7 for Ohio State and Michigan, only 3 of them have been decided by 1 possession. And that cannot be said for the game last year, where Ohio State defeated Michigan 62-39 in a game that Michigan was favored in. Ohio State annihilated the Wolverines and once again ruined their college football playoff hopes. Now for the Buckeyes, I have said before that I think they're the most complete team in the entire country. They're playing some sound football offensively and defensively. They've already clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game. Now they just can't screw up. Now they have to beat Michigan, and they have to win the Big Ten championship over either Wisconsin or Minnesota, and Ohio State is in the college football playoff. Their FPI is giving them a 73.9% chance to win this game, and rightfully so behind Justin Fields, who's only thrown 1 interception this season, and J.K. Dobbins, who has over 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns this year. The defense, of course, is led by Chase Young, arguably the best college football player in the entire country, and they're allowing just 10.5 points per game. I mean, once again, you can't get any better than that. Ohio State playing some phenomenal football. Things to work on. 28-17 victory over Penn State probably should have been a larger margin of victory, but the important thing is that they got the win. For Michigan, though, a couple weeks ago, you would have looked at this game and said Ohio State will annihilate Michigan just like they did last year. But Michigan has found their life. They've found new life, especially on the offensive side of the ball. For the first half of the season, the Wolverines had a horrible offense. One that was supposed to get going this year looked like worse than it has been in recent years under Jim Harbaugh. Now, they're averaging 33.5 points per game, but they're averaging 41.5 points over their past 4 games. That includes 366 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 39 points scored in that win last week over a 7-3 Indiana team on the road. That includes 44 points against Michigan State. That includes 45 points in their home win against Notre Dame. So this Michigan team is clicking on all cylinders. And I know that they are hungry to win at the Big House over their bitter rival that they have not beaten in 7 years. But like last year, Michigan has to do what they have to do to win this game is to avoid a repeat of a breakdown defensively. They put up 39 points in Ohio State last year. That's great. In most scenarios, that's enough to win a football game. But their defense could not stop them and allowed Ohio State to drop 62. In this game, the defense must step up, a defense that's allowing just 16 points per game. But they are allowing 105.9 rushing yards per game. Expect a very balanced performance from J.K. Dobbins and Justin Fields. Expect them to continue to stay on the field. You know, last week against Penn State, they were picking up some crucial third downs on the ground. If Michigan can force Ohio State off the field on those scenarios, they have a chance to win this game. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that. Expect the game to be closer than it was last year. Expect it to be a one-possession game, but Ohio State wins this one at the Big House and keeps their playoff hopes alive. Down here we have another classic rivalry, one of the better ones in all of college football, the Iron Bowl between number 5 Alabama and number 16 Auburn. And I will say this, guys, this is a huge game for both teams, but for different reasons. Alabama clearly, especially with the loss from Oregon last week, is still a college football playoff contender. You know, 2 years ago, this game between the Crimson Tide and the Tigers decided the SEC West. Alabama fell to Auburn 26-14 in that game, and Auburn won the West. Alabama still somehow slipped into the college football playoff. This year, though, we know the West has already been clinched by LSU. So what Alabama needs to do is they need a huge win on the road, a convincing win on the road against a solid 8-3 Auburn team to make the committee open their eyes and say, we need to keep our eye on Alabama and keep them in consideration for that final top 4 spot. For Auburn, this is a big win, not just to get revenge from that 52-21 loss they were given by the Crimson Tide last year, but also this is a big win for Gus Malzahn. Rumors are swirling that the Tigers could get rid of Gus Malzahn at the end of this year if he does not beat Alabama. There would be another 8-4 year in a season where the Tigers had a fantastic start but were unable to beat the elites like Florida, LSU, Georgia, and maybe now Alabama. And we are picking Alabama to win this game. And here's why. I know a lot of people are going to say they don't have they don't have Tua Tagovailoa. They only have Mac Jones, who last week went 10 for 12, 275 yards, and 3 touchdowns in Alabama's win over Western Carolina. Not that big of a deal, but what that does is it's a major confidence booster for a quarterback that does not have that much starting experience. The Bama defense is allowing 16 points per game. That's not a great mark, but it's not a bad mark. I expect both of these teams to be very run-heavy, but I do believe that if Alabama can shut down Auburn's running game that has been their strength all season long, that Bo Nix will be unable to win this game solely through the air. And we said that a few weeks ago against Georgia when Auburn faced off against the Bulldogs, and that's exactly what happened. Georgia did a fairly good job of shutting down that run game, and Bo Nix, despite coming back and making it a respectable game, 21-14, missed a couple of big throws and was unable to win the game through the airs for the Tiger. I think that Alabama does just that. Alabama certainly owns the wide receiver edge in this one, which is going to strongly benefit Mac Jones making his first ever career start on the road. And it's a big one. It's a big one, a huge one in the entire state of Alabama. That Mac Jones and Nick Saban get the job done in a game that's closer than it was last year, a game that's closer than it was 2 years ago, a 12-point game. But Alabama this time comes on the road and defeats the Auburn Tigers in the Iron Bowl. And then finally, Sticking in the middle of the afternoon on Saturday, number 13 Wisconsin at number 9 Minnesota. This is the destination of College game day, and like Virginia Tech and Virginia, this game will determine their division. This game will determine the Big Ten West and who will have a date with Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Now, last year, Wisconsin had a fairly disappointing year. We know that. But nobody saw Minnesota coming into Madison and beating the Badgers 37-15 to clinch bowl eligibility. I don't think anybody saw Minnesota coming in there and annihilating the Badgers the way they did. So will Wisconsin be able to come back and return the favor by getting a huge win over a Golden Gophers team that's still in the hunt for the college football playoff? Or will Minnesota win this game and keep their playoff hopes alive and be one win over Ohio State away from making the Final Four? I will say that in this game, I was shocked to see that the Football Power Index is giving Wisconsin a 60.8% chance to win this game, despite going on the road to face off against Minnesota. I think that is way too high, and I think they actually got it the wrong way. I think Minnesota should be the team that's getting a 60.8% chance to win this game. We know that Wisconsin relies heavily on the run, very similar to Auburn. They're averaging 250.4 rushing yards per game, of course led by Jonathan Taylor, one of the better running backs in the entire country. Minnesota's rushing defense has been very generous, 123.8 rushing yards per game allowed. So, will Jonathan Taylor continue the success? Remember, a few weeks ago, he thrashed that Iowa defense for 250 yards. If he can do the same against Minnesota, Wisconsin will win this game. But I do think that Minnesota's rushing defense, very similar to Alabama's here, you see the comparisons, steps it up a little bit. And once again, when I look at the passing game, I definitely give the edge to Minnesota and Tanner Morgan, who has quickly become one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, completing 65.2% of his passes and has the 6th best QBR in the entire nation. The wide receivers are absolutely phenomenal for Minnesota. You've got Rashad Bateman. You've got Tyler Johnson. You've got a crew of wide receivers that, like Alabama here, owns the edge over the crew of Wisconsin wide receivers. And with home field advantage, with College game day in town for the first time ever, with a division title on the line, I just do not see Minnesota losing this game. I do not see Minnesota losing this game. If they had lost to Penn State a few weeks ago, I might be picking the Badgers. But that win over Penn State did show me that Minnesota is capable of winning big-time games. They did it against Penn State, and they narrowly did it again against Iowa at Kinnick Stadium, only falling in that game by 4 points. Found themselves down pretty big early, battled all the way back to nearly win at a very difficult place to play. This Minnesota team is rowing the boat in the right direction. PJ Fleck has them ready to play every single week. They're not afraid of anybody. They're not afraid of any challenge. And I think Minnesota beats Wisconsin again, clinches the Big Ten West, and sets up a huge showdown against Ohio State in next week's Big Ten Championship. So guys, rivalry week, week 14, the last week of the regular season in college football. Then we've got Conference Championship week, and then we have the Final Four. We know who will be in the playoff by later next week. So things are really starting to heat up here. In all of these games that we have here, throw records out the window, just like we did at the beginning of this video. Anything can happen in college football, and as we've said before, in college football, you can assume nothing. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and check out everything we have for you in the description below. And once again, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.